right, this is Lee Elberson, CEO of Claiborne Education, and I have my doppelganger here wearing the same Claiborne shirt. It's our own Josh Nearly, who is the director of our academic tutoring program and our test proctoring program. Josh, thanks for joining us from some remote location in rural Virginia.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So Josh, I was hoping today we could talk a little bit about what high school students and even middle school students are doing in this sort of post-COVID atmosphere.
Sure.
So can you tell us what effects have you seen the public school grading policy have on students' academic habits?
Sure. So, I mean, the grading policy itself is perhaps one of the smaller elements of this whole coronavirus situation, right? So after the first couple of weeks, kids thought, oh, great, this is gonna be a vacation. I don't have to do anything. Schools didn't really give them any work at all. Most public schools didn't give them any work until this week because they had spring break technically last week. So then they decided to start giving them work again. Well, I mean, by the time they start now, sure, they've got classes every day technically where some of them actually Zoom, have classes online. Others just have work to do. The habits fall away pretty quickly, right? So the habits that they built up over their school year so far fell away, sleeping in, anything a normal teenager would do. And added on to that, now that there's a pass-fail for practically all public schools, from the students I've interacted with, it obviously will only lessen academic habits, right? So there's not as much motivation. Now, a lot of students have the intrinsic motivation of wanting to learn, and we'll touch upon that in a bit, but we'll say it's had a negative effect on academic habits.
So how do you think this is going to affect next school year?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to tell right now. Obviously, long-term effects, we are worried about long-term effects in that case. A couple years down the line, who knows how much this gap in education will affect students in many different ways. But for this upcoming school year, I assume what will happen is that most classes that build off of each other, so build off a previous class, let's take calculus, for instance, will now be even more condensed next year because we're going to have this shorter sort of training period or review period at the beginning of next school year to review everything that was probably lost along the way in these last 6 months or so.
Great, thanks. So in listening to your answer about sort of long-term effects, what can students and parents be encouraging students to do this summer to help prevent some of those long-term consequences?
Sure. So, I mean, I go back to the old saying, make hay while the sun shines, right? So let's just take rising juniors, for instance. Junior year, as I've told most of my current students who are juniors right now, I say this semester that you're in right now probably should have been the busiest semester of your life so far. So rising juniors, for instance, next year, they're going to be going into what was already their busiest year of their school year or of their academic life. Added on, now they have to have all this extra material that they'll have to review at the beginning. So it's going to be even busier. So what kids should be doing now is remaining consistent with their study habits, building really good study habits, preparing obviously for September, which seems like a long time away, but if you can set aside a certain amount of time, doesn't even have to be every day, but a certain amount of time every other day to be studying for courses that you're going to need next year, that's going to really pay dividends once you get to September and beyond. So especially if you're in high school, you're already going to be busy enough normally. You're going to have to take full advantage of all this extra available time that you have now.
Good. That's a great plan. So I guess if parents have any questions, Josh, they can feel free to reach out to you, and you can help discuss a plan for the summer to help catch up on some of these concepts and sort of fill that gap until next school year.
Sure. Yeah. And again, tutoring one-on-one, excellent way to maintain knowledge over a course of time and to increase your knowledge. And again, it doesn't even necessarily have to be every single week. We have other resources that we'd be happy to provide you with. I mean, plenty on the internet like Khan Academy. But yeah, please reach out to me if you have any questions, parents.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Josh. Really appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right, thanks, Lee.